All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another community conversation. Really delighted today to have a good friend, Farron Rucker, join us. He's going to talk a little bit about his intro, how he grew up, where he grew up, how he made his way into kind of the world of technology and data science and data engineering, and then give some tips and tricks to everybody else who might be out there looking to do similar things. Data seems to be kind of where the world is going. We've seen a lot of these AI systems and these foundation model companies like OpenAI and Anthropic and Perplexity like start to really change the context and the texture of what people are interested in doing and like the applications that people are going to be using moving forward. So data is at the heart of all of that stuff. So excited to maybe ask you some questions about what your favorite tools and things to play with are. But before we go there, I'll introduce myself. I'm Brandon Middleton. I'll be your host and your moderator for today's community conversation. And yeah, just looking to be a tour guide as we unearth all the cool things about Farron's story here. So Farron, I'm gonna pass it over to you, man. Like what's your name, where you're at, what you're focused on, maybe a fun fact even about yourself. Feel free to take, a minute, two, three to give the people who you are and what you're up to.
Man, excellent. Yeah, super excited to be here. Super excited to be here. Yeah, I'm Farron Rucker. I'm a solutions architect and data scientist. What that kind of means in a nutshell is I take complex business needs and I develop comprehensive IT and software solutions. Another way of looking at it is a jack of all trades. So there are technologies and things I may have never seen or worked with before, and they're just here's a problem, and having to do tons of research and spooling up on whatever tool is really available or whatever tool is compatible with our systems. So always learning. It's really cool. By trade, I'm an electronics engineer. And so I transitioned from troubleshooting electrical systems to now problem solving with data analytics and machine learning. So it's really the same thing, just different tool set. And so I've truly enjoyed the transition. Let's see, I'm originally from North Carolina, so I'm from the South. I've been here in California since COVID, and I'm sure we'll kind of maybe briefly touch on my story. But COVID presented opportunity, and that's how I was able to really transition to California, actually. Um, but yeah, I've loved technology and data and just problem solving since the beginning. Um, Growing up, I didn't have really a name for it. I just knew I loved problem solving, fixing, putting things together, and then come to find out engineering is kind of where I drew kind of towards the end of high school, actually. So yeah, technology is always changing, continuous learning. I'm always learning new things. Um, so yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Dope, dope. Well, thank you again for being here. I think, we could go all the way back to kind of when things were first starting, and maybe ask the question like, did like little 7 or 8 year old Farron see himself in kind of the context that you're operating today? Like, what was like the origin story back in North Carolina? Like, how did it all start to come together as you were starting up in elementary school. So paint a picture for us
Okay.
in that time
Okay.
of your life.
Man, it's a great question. Yeah, 'cause right now I work for a naval weapons division. It's in Southern California. I forgot to mention that. And so pretty cool technologies and things I'm having to work through now, but I never would have thought I'd be here. Um, Elementary school, yeah, I actually grew up in an athletic family.
Mm.
So it was sports, basketball. My dad was a Hall of Famer for a couple of schools here in California. So it was always basketball and like staying on your grades was kind of the thing. And so um, that was really big. And then fixing cars really is where I learned or started to troubleshoot. So I started working on cars at 11, 12,
Wow.
just out with dad. I think I pulled my first motor 16, 17. just always working on cars, like hours every weekend. Something's either breaking or trying to upgrade something. And so it was really it wasn't necessarily just fun, but it was out of necessity. And
Mm,
so, but I learned to love it and work on systems. That's when I really started. And then later on, I learned there's a name, kind of a name for it, automotive technology or engineering. And so, grew up in a small town, um, not tons of going on in the town I'm from. It's quite a few military. Uh, Not anyone in my family specifically, but my dad worked for DoD for years. Um, yeah, it's just a really North Carolina's like the college basketball capital.
yeah.
You know, it's you hear about Duke and Chapel Hill and NC State all the time, and so huge basketball culture. And so I actually got a scholarship to there's a well-known like junior college where I'm from, and I was like, cool, got a scholarship. I had a scholarship to a D2, so I did decent, and God had a different path because this first month of basketball tryouts, I blew my knee. And
Mm,
so I lost my scholarship. It vanished. And there was, I'm going to call her an angel. Her name was Jackie G. One of my professors saw that I was going to school and still doing well without books because I couldn't afford books. I was like couch to couch. And I was like, man, I'm going to finish school and I'm going to go somewhere after this, but I have to finish school. And I was doing really well in school with no books and I ended up getting an academic scholarship.
wow.
And then it was like, oh, do you know, like you can go for, engineering and math and things like that. I ended up getting math awards, got an engineering award, or like a pre-engineering award. Um, and that's kind of where there was like a hard pivot. I thought I was hooping in school kind of second, still doing good, but then I pivoted to school and engineering and things like that. So um, that was my first pivot, and then I fell in love with still fixing cars and engineering and troubleshooting and theory, and it was cool. People get paid to
Yeah.
troubleshoot systems, and so that's kind of the first pivot.
I love that, man. There's certain kinds of engineers that never get their actual hands dirty because they're like writing software,
Yes.
writing
Yep.
software all day.
Yep.
So I like that you're the kind that literally like you were under the hood. You was like changing out motors. You was like
Yep.
probably having oil all over your hands and all over your body, having to shower that stuff off. So not every day, since we're moving towards a mostly software type of
Right.
work, but that's cool to know that that's part of your origin story, man.
Yeah. Correct. It was super fun.
So
Yeah. Super fun.
I want to touch on something you said. You said like without books. So you were in class
Mhm.
getting assigned homework from books that you didn't have. Am I getting that right?
So I didn't own any of the books. So I'd go to the library.
Mhm.
Uh, I'd use the teachers because teachers usually would get a second book, or I would go to like a friend's house or something that was in the class and like get their try to get the notes and homework. But I didn't own any books during those semesters, and there wasn't like a lot of like YouTube and stuff. It wasn't super huge back then. Um, so yeah, no, I just it. So I was also homeschooled. So that, if anything, that taught me how to be resourceful
Mm.
and learning processes. And so when I got to college, I didn't think it was a big deal. Everyone's like, you don't buy your books. I'm like, no, I could still get the material. I could still. I didn't think it was anything, and then it got me ended up getting me awards and stuff. And so, uh, but yeah, definitely God's grace for sure. But yeah, I just didn't own any books, but I just it's like, hey, the teachers usually have a book, or there's an older edition, and so it's still the same context, just different versions. And so I was able to, yeah, exceed and got a math award. I got all kinds of stuff at school. It was really cool.
Yeah, I resonate with that a bunch just because once my scholarship money ran out in the middle of my college career, I started getting real resourceful as well. Like
Yep,
with
yep,
the books, with like even to the point of like planning my schedule from 9 o'clock in the morning is when my classes started. The last one would end at 5 because I knew companies from recruiting standpoint, we're going to come to campus and offer like these info sessions and these things where there'd be pizza, there'd be a meal that I would not have to pay for. And that would be like the food that I would eat before I go to the library to kind of embark on my, night of studying, get out at midnight or 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. So I had the whole system mapped out how not
Have it.
to pay for
Yeah.
anything.
Nice. Super smart. Very resourceful. Dang, I
Yeah,
didn't think about that. I wish I would have, but they definitely had a number of free events, but I didn't think about that.
yeah.
Yeah.
For
Sense.
everybody watching, I just want to like highlight kind of the resourcefulness and some of like the black magic that we pull
Yeah.
out of the hat in order to kind of get by and get through
Yep.
that time of life. Um, so then you mentioned homeschooling. Was that all the way through high school, or did it stop? Just give us a sense of that.
Yeah, no, I was homeschooled since elementary school.
Okay.
And so a lot of people would be shocked because there's like a stigma around homeschooling being socially awkward and things like that. But people can be socially awkward regardless of their environment.
Yeah, that part.
Um, yeah, and so I think there's a bit of a stigma around it. But I think the biggest learning curve for a homeschooler is really the time constraints,
Hmm.
from a testing standpoint. So once you kind of map that out and you have good practice with that, you be uh, pretty lethal in regards to just learning things and going in depth. And so, I think in high school, I'd probably been to 30 some states. We traveled to different conferences and things. And, I had PE groups and I played at AAU, and there's tons of just social environments. And so, but yeah, homeschooling definitely taught me to be resourceful. It taught me to not think group think,
Mm-hmm.
because you work to think independently,
Yeah.
and I kind of typically draw away from like everyone agrees with whatever this one concept is, and kind of question it. I think a lot of that was derived from my upbringing.
Yeah. So then, did your mom and dad split it, or was it mostly like your mom?
Mom, yeah,
Okay.
mostly mom. Yeah, dad was the sports and make sure you stay in academics, but mom was the principal, director, uh, for
Yeah.
sure.
So let's double click into that because I know, a lot of black and brown families, like the mom is literally like the glue that holds a family together. So take a minute to brag on your mom. Like what kind of woman was she? Like what kind of teacher was she? Just give us a sense of like how important she was in your development.
My mom was incredible, and incredible, I think. But a big part of that is because she was given the environment to do so. I think that um, a lot of people didn't grow up with a father, and so the mother has to be dual-hatted. And so I think because my dad was a really strong foundation for her, allowed her to be innovative, allowed her to be in her mom energy, yet extremely strong and yet extremely creative.
Mm.
My mother was a praying mom for sure. It's me and my brother. I have older siblings. They're roughly 10 years older. So they didn't homeschool with us, but we had a younger brother too. And my mother is phenomenal. We have a great relationship. I talk to her still every week. Talk to my dad probably every other week. Super smart. Always provokes us to question things,
Yeah.
in kind of the why you do things. And that's something I think I learned from her. But yeah, always learning. Um, People, I learned quite a bit about people with her, traveling, discipline. Again, I think uh, because she had that environment, she was able to have this balance of being nurturing, yet there was such a respect. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one of my favorite people for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like a hero, man.
Yeah,
Well, shout out to mom if she's ever gonna
yeah,
see this.
yeah,
Big heart, and
absolutely.
it's it's interesting to kind of hear the influence from community conversation to community conversation of different kind of folks from inside of the family and then sometimes outside of the family, like in the community context. Did you have any people outside of your immediate family structure that were super um, critical in helping you develop kind of a worldview, or were kind of big motivators or big supporters or enablers for you there in North Carolina?
Yes, absolutely. Jackie Jibo, I previously mentioned, she was an angel. She helped me pivot from the academic or the athletic scholarship domain to academic. I never even thought of having an academic scholarship.
Hmm.
Like it wasn't even, it was like basketball. My dad would kind of, like you mentioned through the years, but it being something tangible is not something I truly thought about until um, her. So she was a pivotal point. So I started my first engineering job was for a research and development medical company. And that's where I went from the theory of electrical engineering to actually being able to troubleshoot devices. There's 100 devices, 100 and some devices there, but I learned that fundamentally there's only 10, which is 10 different variations. A lot of that I learned from my first boss, I would consider one of my first mentors, Doug Stark, troubleshooting for, troubleshot for 30 plus years. And so, he kind of walked on water. And so he really sat down with me and learning systems and power and learning to troubleshoot, kind of splitting your system in halves and a lot of those things that you didn't learn in school. Engineering is just, it was just tons of theory. And so a lot of hands-on experience there as well as my previous. Then from him, I worked for a naval aviation avionics organization, still within the DoD, and I troubleshot industrial equipment, avionics systems, so aircraft, tons of aircraft. Um, I think one system we had like 40 miles of wire and had to like use different fixtures and diagrams and just tons of stuff. But I met another mentor there, Mike Moore, phenomenal, like one of my most pivotal mentors, hands down. He taught me about like opportunity because there was a point where I was having such a challenge within that a certain department was extremely challenging, and he kind of helped me expand my perspective. Like, hey, there are so many opportunities here. You see a bunch of problems, but you could also see you could be someone who could potentially fix a lot of these things. Like, okay, problems are now opportunity. And so he taught me a lot of, again, another engineer, electrical engineer, really helped mold me and helped me to look at opportunities and challenging departments could actually be an opportunity for creating solutions. So he brought me a lot of hope. I still talk to him today. Um, and Jewel Wall, yeah, there's a few mentors. Yeah, shout out to all these mentors. I think I have a couple more. Uh, Jewel Wall is a black engineer. He was one of the like highest levels within the organization, and so such an incredible person. Um, but it was great to see people that look like me in high positions, and so like, oh wow, like I can do this too. Like
Yeah.
okay, and he taught me a lot of things about people and systems and troubleshooting, and he was great. And then I had a couple of women mentors that were extremely impactful. They taught how to not only just be this like authoritative leader, but like how do you have the emotional piece is extremely important. So how do you understand people? How do you not necessarily just lead the team, but how do you just support your team?
Yeah.
And so it's okay to be vulnerable. Like it's okay to like vulnerability creates trust. And I learned yeah tons from her. Um, and that was let's see, Susan Marcelino, again a phenomenal leader. Just taught me just watching her. She moved in such excellence, but yet there's such a human experience with her. Like
Mm.
you understood she was human instead of this kind of robotic, I'm the smartest engineer vibe. So she taught me a lot. And so, yeah, mentors, I think, are one of the most invaluable tools for sure, in my experience.
Yeah, I'm hearing you list off like 6 or 7 of them. So hopefully everybody that's watching is like understanding that it doesn't
Yep.
have to just be one or two. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be that they stick around for the rest of your life, but they're good for like a season.
Yep.
And that it's okay to contact them all
Yep.
throughout your life because it sounds like you still call them from every once in a while just to check in and see what's up, even if they're not necessarily helping you think through a current problem or a current challenge that you're having. Would you say that that's fair?
That's a fair assessment. Absolutely. Yeah, mentors are, yeah, phenomenal. You don't learn about them much in school that I remember, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just, yeah, it's super impactful. It's like reading a book on someone's journey, but you have like live feed to it, and they can help you through challenges, things what to do, not to do. I have a few or a handful of mentees, and I think I take that time anytime they call or text me, is because I'm like, I remember how much of an impact it was for me.
Yeah,
So for sure.
same. You said a couple things that were intriguing to me, like along the lines of things that they don't teach you in college. Uh, so there's a whole laundry list, like a whole probably hour conversation that we can have.
Yes, absolutely.
But like, give me your top like 2 to 3 things that they just weren't in the coursework, but you have figured out that these are some really, really important things that you've learned from mentors or that you helped your current mentees piece together for themselves. Things that you don't or can't learn in college.
You know, uh, that kind of stood with me is it's they always say like it's not that simple, and a lot of times it is. In the real world, it can actually be simple, you know. I think college teaches you here's the right answer. And this answer could represent perfection. And in engineering, you set up this whole like here are all the assumptions. There's no friction. There's no air force. There's no all of these things, right, to create this perfect world. And it's not. I think there are very few teachers that teach you of wanting you to learn the thought process. They want you, a lot of teachers want you to learn what's the correct answer. And that just doesn't apply in the real world. In my opinion, it's iterative, there's learning, and it's like the thought process. I think there's very few, I had really a few really good teachers that taught you thought process. That's what I was able to apply in the real world. It wasn't the how to get the correct answer from some problem in a book. Um, that would be a couple of things I learned. Continuous learning. I feel like in engineering, um, maybe because of school construct, they teach you, well, if you went through this path, then you have to be this type of engineer. Or if you went through this path, you have to be this type of engineer. And I learned that that's just not true, in my opinion. I think if someone wants to put forth the time, the effort, the studying, they could really be whatever they want to be. And so um, there are things like even with AI and things that came out, like I didn't learn that in school.
Yeah.
I didn't learn about AI, machine learning. That actually happened. I entered a competition. We could chat about it later, but I entered a data analytics competition, ended up placing top 5 in the country. And I had never done artificial intelligence or anything like that. But learning, I was like, oh my gosh, I could just learn something new. It's just another tool. Like tools are temporary, but processes and thought processes and being able to work through things can last forever. And so those are a few things. And I think I probably out of school directly, I'd probably apply maybe 10, 20% of it. Um, the other 80% is just learning processes and continuous learning for sure. Um, But yeah, school's cool. I have degrees.
Yeah.
Pro school, but man, there's a lot of things I think I would have like just like taxes and entrepreneurship and so many things I wish I would have learned in parallel, aside from getting the check in the box with degrees.
Yeah.
So
So vital. You dropped a bunch of bars in there, and I mean some of the gold around um just being able to keep a student's hat on, even if you're getting a W-2 every year and like getting a check every couple of weeks, like especially with the culture that we live in right now, there's no excuse for you to not know certain things if you've got internet, laptop, YouTube. Like you don't even have to have a whole lot of money like you used to have back in the day because it's all out there and it's just up to you to go on that treasure hunt and find it. And I love what you said about, not necessarily having to conform to a box for a particular type of engineer or particular type of like job description, because I think AI is making it a little bit more feasible for somebody who just got a business background to, delve into the things that are a little bit more technical or vice versa, or for entrepreneurs, right, who have never done it before to be able to feel a little bit less imposter syndrome about doing it because they've got tools that can kind of support them that literally didn't exist 1, 2, 3, 4 years ago. So
Yep.
hopefully, humanity will use all these things in a really responsible fashion. But
Right. Yep.
history is our teacher. So we've seen with kind of the advent of the internet, the advent of certain technologies that it starts with like a wild wild west type of atmosphere, and then the
Yep.
regulation policy comes in to organize and provide safeguards and stuff like that. But
Right.
yeah, love
Absolutely.
some of the stuff that you're dropping for the listeners today, and hopefully people are picking up what you're putting down. So um, the next thing I want to pivot to, like we're at the maybe halfway point. So like this is halftime. If this were an
Mhm.
actual basketball game, and typically they do a show at halftime. So let's jump out of the actual like question and answer and maybe jump into like a fun lightning round. So you mentioned a lot of travels early. So give me like the top 3, 4 places that you traveled to within the States or like elsewhere that you recommend to anybody that's looking at this video.
My favorite, I think, hands down, is was Taiwan. I got to play basketball out there, and phenomenal experience. It's cool going to. I've been to Germany and like islands and Jamaica and things like that, but going to a place where you have nothing to reference, like everything is new, the language, the culture, the people, the sound, like everything is like it's a very different experience. As opposed to moving to a different state or a different, going to like Europe. There's things that you can kind of relate with. Taiwan was one of those like I relate with nothing here. And it was interesting because a lot of people there have never seen black people. And so I remember doing a kids camp with kids and like they were touching my skin to see if it rubbed off. Right. And my coach warned us, so like a lot of these people, other
Yeah.
than like some of them, like never seen someone that I'm like, wow. And so that was a phenomenal experience. I'd say the Virgin Islands, I got to play basketball there. Uh, it was really, really cool too. The food, the culture, the beaches, it was really cool. Um, I'd say I'm a bit biased. I'd also say like California is one of my favorite places because it's like other than cost of living. But if we ignore that, if we ignore that, it's beautiful. And it's you could go an hour one direction and it looks this way. You can go another 2 hours this direction. It looks, it's like Little Italy. And then you can go this direction and it's black culture. And you can go, yeah. So I really like it. Like California is so diverse and there's so many different people here. Um, yeah, but yeah, I've been to probably 35 states. Chicago's beautiful.
Yeah.
Uh, as you man, I've never seen buildings like that, like ever.
Yeah.
Like the infrastructure downtown and the bean and all those things. Like I remember Chicago was no kidding. I was like, as an engineer, I'm like, oh my gosh, like how do they get these buildings to move? Like, yeah, Chicago's really cool. But yeah,
So
those would be my kind of top places.
cool. Let's move to you mentioned kind of sports and sports culture a little bit. So you rooting and rocking with particular teams in the NBA or in the NFL, or like give us like your top couple of clubs that you follow.
Man, so I've been a Lakers fan forever. My dad was he played semi-pro Lakers. Was always grew up hearing about Kareem and Magic. So Lakers fan, first most, and I was a Kobe fan forever. Now LeBron's over there. LeBron's great, but it's always a little tough because being a Kobe fan. Second would be the Warriors, out in the Bay. So the Warriors for sure. Steph Curry, North Carolina native. You know, uh, followed him for some years now. Um, my sister was a cheerleader for the 49ers, so kind of grew up in that household. So that would be my other sports team. But yeah, Lakers, Warriors, uh, surprisingly, Panthers or other North Carolina teams. But yeah, that would be it for
Oh,
sure.
man, shout out Steve Smith, Cam Newton, some of those guys. I mean, they've had some phenomenal athletes, but
They have, yep, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, workhorses for sure.
yeah. Let's go to maybe like music. So when you're like jamming and in your thought flow space for your engineering jobs, you got particular genres of music you're into, or like well, just give us a little double click there, maybe top two or three bands, artists, singers, rappers that you follow.
So when I'm in deep thought and I'm trying to like focus, I'll probably play Sebastian Bach,
Okay.
an absolute classic, just the instrumental. Um, because it's like it helps, it's like I'm listening to music, but I'm not listening to music. And so that really helps. I'd say as far as like R&B or rappers, I'd say Tobin and Wigwam. He's a he's a rapper from Texas, Nigerian rapper. He's phenomenal. Lecrae, he's phenomenal. J. Cole, Big Sean, those are phenomenal rappers that I think they're conscious rappers. So I feel like when I'm listening, I'm like, whoa, like as opposed to like other just entertainment rap is cool. That's cool when I'm like maybe working out, but usually the conscious rappers are what I listen to. And then there's R&B like Coco Jones, Daniel Caesar. Her has a few songs. Common is phenomenal. But yeah, I try to do conscious rappers. And then now I'm reading like there's like an audio book that I'm going through now, and or just started back up. It's been pretty cool. So audiobooks, I listen to a few of those too.
Man, you like great minds think alike. I was literally about to ask. This is the last kind of light
Okay,
round section question. Like, what have you been
nice.
listening to in terms of Audible, or like what have you actually been reading, like tangible books? So, give us
Yeah.
like a couple of your top two or three reads of kind of contemporary, like in the last year or two, or just like all time. Like,
Man, yeah, I try to get back into being intentional reading books. It's like I'm always learning new things and technologies and things, so uh it kind of like that's that learning piece. But as far as like being intentional, I started the 4 hour work week. So I think it's great. It's like, okay, like, so I started kind of doing steps with that and applying it to my life. Um, the seven habits of highly effective people. I just started that. So that's been really, really cool. I didn't realize it was so much also about people and habits and like really changing internally, not just here's a bunch of things that you need to do on the daily. Like a lot of that is focused internal and holding like the user accountable. So that's been really cool. One of my favorite books was The Truth About Men about by Devon Franklin. That talks about really it talks about like discipline and really like every man or it's targeted towards men, but men and women, everyone has like this dog in them, it's lust or whatever the case may be. And so talking about how do you tame that, how do you discipline that? And it's not something that goes away, which I think they talk about in churches that just vanishes. This talks about like how do you uh, have that into submission? How do you discipline that? And then Another book I thought was really cool. I think it's by Jason Williams called Battle Cry, and it's about like men's emotions and how men aren't traditionally able to like emotionally express. And it talks about like men trauma and things like that. And so how to come together, how to be emotional, how to say like as a man, how do you say I love you, um, how to how to be kind, and then yeah, it just exposes a lot of things within the man. You could apply it to really any ethnicity, but you know, in the Black community and the trauma surrounding around that, and how to change the narrative to that. And so that book is inspiring. It also helped inspire me to do. I do like I just joined one of the OK programs. It's like a mentoring program for local youth, like in troubled areas. And so um, I just finished a class. I'll be able to like go and mentor youth um, and expose them to like opportunities and just wanting to be that guy. They're like, oh, I didn't know that was possible. Kind of a thing is my hope for that group.
Dope, dope. Shout out Tim Ferriss, Stephen Covey. You like named all the rest of the authors in there. But like,
Yeah,
man, reading is such a vital, or at least listening, because I know a lot of
yeah,
people moving over to just audio books while they work out or while they go on runs and stuff. But if you're watching this, like, please never stop learning. You know, put that eternal student hat on. It'll transform your life. Um, so let's pivot a little bit back into maybe some of the prepared questions that I've got. But maybe let's like talk about the future. So like things that you're kind of hopeful about, things that you see as patterns starting to form that you think will really like influence the way that you or like the future generation of kids that are coming up. What are maybe a couple of trends or things that like you're really, really jazzed up and excited about in this day and age, like here in late 2023?
OpenAI, Copilot, like those are like phenomenal. It's interesting how it's changed the like coding. You used to code like hours a day, like just hours a day, tons amount of time, and then something breaks and you have to go back in another two, three iterations, and now you have systems that could review code and like give suggestions. It's like what? Like here's a better way you could have written your code.
Yeah.
Like, are you just insane? It's um you know, I know AI has been around for, or statistical learning has been around for, you know, 50, probably close to 70 years. But now the technology's finally caught up with it. And so it's interesting to see people actually leverage it now. What I think is cool about the AI realm is that it's created a like a kind of an even playing field. You kind of briefly mentioned earlier, you know, business people can now dabble in AI, and now AI people could dabble into more business and art and creativity. I think what's so cool to me, I could sit here for hours and do like the create like the AI drawings. Though it's literally just what you imagine and just create it. It's like that's been pretty phenomenal. What I do, fun fact with my kids is start teaching my son like how to program, and he's 10. I have two kids, and a 10 and 8 year old. Start teaching him how to program like basics and thought process. But I we do child store. We use like a couple like the AI apps to do create books,
Yep.
and so I'll sit here and we'll all sit around the computer and like, hey, give the characters, give the story, and then it'll write out the character. Then there's another app used for like coloring books and animation. So we sit there and like create bedtime stories live, which has been so cool. I'm like, all right, guys, let's create a bedtime story. And then I'll read it, do like the names and voices and whatnot. But yeah, AI has been phenomenal. I can definitely see pros and cons of it. But I think coming from the world of engineering, we try to work ourselves out of a job because there's always opportunities to problem solve. And so I see it as opportunity. Um, not AI is taking our jobs. It might take away mundane jobs for sure. Instead of a call center, now you create a chat bot, which the chat bots are phenomenal as well. Created quite a few of those. But yeah, it transitions us to hopefully do more impactful work. So instead of me now sending 4 to 6 hours on research, I can do it in like an hour and a half. Now I can spend more points on drawing a conclusion. I can, instead of it go through like a team of being reviewed, my code being reviewed, I can now throw it through an iteration of one of these AI apps. It spits it out. Now I can go spend more time on visualizations because now my code is done in less than 2 weeks time. So that has me excited. Um, yeah, as far as the future, I'm now seeing those like generative AI job postings,
Mhm.
which is wild. It's like a Gen AI engineer. I'm like, it's like, are you kidding me? Like, because I was really into like NLP last year, and then now that all the generative models have came out, now I'm learning that. Um, but it's pretty powerful. I love learning. Super excited to see like how you automate like the ETL process. Because I spent quite a bit of my time like pre-processing unclean data, and so seeing like some of these like ETL tools gets me excited because now I'm spending less time on fixing all the problems with the data to now I can spend more time on actually getting insights out of the data and making decisions off of it. That process has been expedited uh, extremely. So yeah, AI has been that's things I'm excited about. And then seeing kids do it, exposing them to it and seeing like what they create because when I look at it, I still have boundaries and limits. But like when a kid does it, or a young adult, or whatever, like my kids were doing it, I'm like, oh, I didn't think of okay. And so those biases and filters and shades aren't there yet. So super excited to see that. Yeah, hopefully to do more of that. My current environment's a bit constricted because of the securities, and so hopefully either the securities will be somewhat lifted for more innovation, or I find some other opportunity where I could just create and do really cool things. So
Yeah.
yeah, in a nutshell.
I press pause and timeout because I know my mom would be like, "What is ETL?" Mom, it's
Oh yes,
track, transform, and load, and it's
yep,
what you do with data when you're trying to prepare it and get it ready from going in its unclean and raw stage to
yep,
something that's usable, like by the business or by like the internal team that you're working towards. I think that's
yes,
the only acronym that I heard. I
yes.
want to be like sensitive to like people who are
Thank
watching
you,
might not be inside
thank you. Yep.
side of the world that we all are living in too.
Yeah, no, great call. No, great call.
um, I also wanted to ask you, so like when you're generating the bedtime stories, I know there's like Midjourney, there's Dali, there's like Stability AI. Like which what are your go-to tools in that space when you're kind of hanging and doing stuff
Yeah,
with
probably Dolly, just because it's connected with the GBT. I'd say Jolly. Mid Journey is really cool because I started like taking some of the trainings on like feature engineering or prompt engineering, so that's been really cool. Versus you can kind of go and you can do some cool stuff, but learning kind of more the syntax or
Yeah.
correctly asking the correct prompts has helped. But yeah, Dolly would be. It's so easy because I could literally sit the kids in front of it versus here's how to correctly enter a prompt. So yeah, those would be some of the popular ones for sure.
Yeah, that's dope. Well, man, we got just like a 5 or so minutes left. I want to give you flowers and just say thank you for kind of sharing a piece of your journey with us. And then maybe for
Yeah.
the next couple minutes, like if you were only to be able to catch kind of a few things out of this conversation, take a couple of minutes to just say to anybody viewing, like if you only can get three things out of this, make sure you put this, and this in your back pocket as you move forward.
I'd say you you kind of hit the nail on the head. Just be a student, a continuous student. I think continuously learning. I think when you stop learning is kind of like when you stop being human and you stop being innovative. Um, yeah, I think continuous learning is one of the things I would pay close attention to. Um, Data analytics and AI and technology, it's an even playing field. So it doesn't really matter what your background is. You can do it. Um, you can be an engineer from business office, from athletics, whatever the case may be, and you can transition to it because it's such a welcoming industry in that you just have to have the will to learn and just being consistent is so I think that's been phenomenal. Mentors, man, I'd say hands down, that is yeah, because you could be in a really tough spot or at a plateau in your career and talk to the right person. And it's an interview process, you know. It's an interview process. There's, as you mentioned earlier, you may or may not find the right mentor, and so don't be discouraged if you get the wrong one or two. Just keep at it, and know there are people that want you to succeed, and so stay encouraged. Yeah, that would be my that'd be my thing. Yeah, I've had a lot of transitions, and so um, even me being in Cali, like I didn't know, like I literally moved to Cali within a week. I was in North Carolina. I was like, hey, I need to be in Cali, family reasons, and I was here. No plan of action, no anything, no COVID, and now I'm working for weapons division via remote. So, um, yeah, continuous learning, mentors would be the top two takeaways for sure.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, if you ever catch this man on the street and there's a basketball and a court, it seems like he might play horse with you.
Right, yeah,
If you
for
catch this man
sure.
in a lab
Yep,
and there's two
absolutely.
laptops available, it seems like this man might be able to duel on a coding challenge with you.
Yep, absolutely,
But
absolutely.
yeah, man, I really appreciate you coming by to kind of enhance our community.
Yep.
Literally have folks that I think are taking traditional routes that are gonna watch this 4-year university, and then you've got folks that are School of the Hard Knocks, kind of coming through in alternate ways in order to get their way into tech or into business. So I feel like all of the kind of touch points and community conversations that we put out are useful to kind of many different demographics, but to show and to make visible what's possible. Um, I think you're the first, probably first homeschooler that I've
Yeah.
put into the conversation series here. So that's super cool. I, as
Yes.
a parent, have considered homeschooling a couple times now
Yeah.
because of just the amount of
Ooh,
focus and kind of blocking out of all the other kids in the class and like the ability to travel and some of the stuff that you've talked about.
yeah,
So my wheels are still spinning now that I've talked to you, Van. So I appreciate
yeah,
you bringing that.
absolutely. No, absolutely.
Well, again, our thanks and gratitude
Hey, thank you, sir.
today.
Yep.
And have a great rest of the week. Happy holiday season. And hope y'all are going to stay happy, healthy, and successful. Looking to see what you do and what you build next, bro.
Hey, I appreciate it, brother. Thank you for having me. I'm really honored.
For sure. We'll talk soon.
Okay, take care. Bye.